Hey everybody, and thanks for sticking with me till the very end. This is the last video of the series here, building a website from scratch. And what we're going to do now is build a functioning nav burger with a drop-down menu. That's what we're going to be focusing on. And we're going to kind of do this in a little bit of a tricky way. It's a bit of a hack that's been around for a very long time. It works really well. It's still supported by every browser that I know of. It's called the checkbox hack. And it's a great way to make a menu using only CSS. Otherwise, you'd have to go to things like JavaScript or something. This will keep it to be just a completely CSS created menu drop down. All right, so let's do it. First of all, last video, we inserted this burger. And this burger only shows when the site gets below 600 pixels. That's what we had set it to. And first thing we should do is we should have some sort of a hover effect so that we can actually tell when we are hovering over it. And so let's do that here. We're going to put .burger. Remember this from a very long time ago when we were making our original navbar. We're going to put :hover, which means this is what happens when we are hovering over it. We're going to change the background of that. Oops, I misspelled background. To, let's go RGBA, because we're going to use alpha here. We're going to go 255, 255, 255, which is white. But then for our transparency, for our alpha, we're going to put 0.5. And what that'll do is give us sort of a, like a gray, a neutral gray. If we save that, you'll see that when we scroll over this, you have to click the browser, but you'll see that that now has this nice sort of grayish background that kind of tells us that our mouse is over top of it. One other thing we could do, I don't know if I explained this before, but we could change the cursor can change to, you can do all sorts of different shapes. I think pointer is one of them. I think that'll change it. So you'll see now that when we scroll over it, yeah, see how it changes to a hand? So that cursor command, it goes from an arrow to a pointer finger, meaning that we can click it. You can do that for your buttons as well, but this is kind of a cool command because you can put in custom cursors as well. Kind of neat. But anyways, now what we're going to do is we're going to actually create the drop-down menu, because this is sort of the last step here that we need to make this work. And in order for this to work, what we're going to do is we are going to create something called a checkbox input. And basically the way it works is we will treat this button as a checkbox. And when it is checked on, the menu will show. And when it is checked off, the menu will hide. And it, like I said, it works really well, especially for things that you're going to be, touching with your finger when this is on a mobile screen. Checkboxes work great because, again, you can't hold your finger down and, it's not the same as with a mouse. So this system works pretty good. In order to do that, we're going to have to go back to our index. We're going to have to change just a couple things, nothing major. We're going to head back over to the index. What we're going to do is, first of all, around the div class for the burger, we're going to make a label. All right. And what the label will do is it's going to tell it, because it's asking what is this for, we're going to put for equals menu. Okay. And we're going to set a tab index of 0. I'll explain that later. The label will end after the burger div. So down here, we will paste it. I just want to indent everything myself manually. I know I could do it automatically, but I want it to look like that. Okay, so we created a label here, meaning that when the burger is clicked, it's going to activate this menu, is the name that we've given it. All right. And the menu is going to be this drop down, which is right here. Okay, so let's set that up. Before our comment, we're going to put input. We're going to say ID equals menu. This name here has to match the name up here. It's very important. And the type of input is going to be a checkbox. Okay. You're going to see how this all works in a second. Now we can get rid of these comments. Wipe them out completely. Okay. And if we save, you're going to see that it all comes back. Say it looks a little weird. There's a checkbox here. It doesn't make any sense at all. Okay. But basically, we now have this sort of setup started for the drop-down menu. But in order for this to work and in order for it to actually show correctly, we have to tell it that by default, when the site is at full size, first of all, we don't want the checkbox to be displayed. We don't want it to show up. So we'll start with that. We're going to go back to our CSS. We're going to just go right above the animation section. So we're in the desktop sort of area of the CSS. And we're going to put nav input type equals checkbox. Okay. And also the nav label, which is the other part of it. If you remember, we used input and label on the index in the nav on the other page. We're just going to tell it that the display for those will be none while we are on the desktop view. So we'll save that. You'll see that it disappears. That's good. This isn't working yet. I'm going to show you what the command is for this. You'll see that we can't click it because nothing is working. You'll see that when I go into the full size, it disappears, which is good. This looks really goofy. We're going to fix it in a second because it's still all set up from before. Here's the magical little command that you put in that basically checks to see if you've clicked this or not. And so in our CSS, now we're down in just under the burger hover. We are going to put input. And once again, we're going to put type equals checkbox. Oops, man, I can't type. Checkbox. Okay. And here's the command. You put colon, not, rounded bracket, colon, checked, which means if it is not checked. And we're going to say plus UL, which means that it is going to affect the list that is underneath the checkbox. Okay, and I'm gonna go back to my my HTML in a second to show you what that's all about. Display none. What this command is doing, this is the magic command, it is checking in mobile to see if the object is checked or not, checking if it is checked. It will affect the unordered list below, whoops, right here, sorry, right here. You'll see that right here we have the index type is checkbox. This list is what will be affected, where if it is not checked, if it is not checked, then the display will be none. I'm going to save that. I'm going to test it, and you'll see now that this button will hide and show the nav bar that we have existing. It still looks like garbage, but now this little button is hiding and showing the nav bar properly. The next step, of course, is to make this look correct. All right, so let's look back. You'll notice here We have all of this stuff inside of a class that we made earlier called Dropdown. Okay. And what we're going to do is, instead of focusing on the Dropdown class, which we could focus on that. Instead, what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually focus on the mobile nav class, which is controlling all of this, which will allow me to control all of these elements that are inside of here. Okay, so let's do that. If we go to our style CSS, I believe I had the start of mobile nav right here, as you can see. And we had block and visible because we are in the mobile section. We want it to turn on. Let's make a few changes to it. So first of all, let's make sure that the position is fixed. I think all of this actually, without making any changes to it, I might just leave this for now, temporarily. I might come back to that. Instead, we're going to affect certain parts of it. We're going to put mobile nav. Wow, mobile nav. And we are going to affect the unordered list, the UL, which if you look here, back in your HTML, contains the buttons. So let's start by styling that. First of all, for the list, we're going to set the background color. We will set it to red, green, blue, A to 0, 0, 0, which is actually what we had before. 0, 0, 0. Oh, I'm putting O's. 0, 0, 0, 0.7. Okay. And look at, I'm making mistakes left and right. I'm going too fast. Save. Okay, we won't see any change there. That just simply changed the background color. Let's also maybe, before we make any more changes to that, let's also change the mobile nav unordered list items. So these are the list items inside of the unordered list. We're going to first of all take off the float. If you remember, the float is what puts them all beside each other. So if we save that, now they'll be in a list like that. Okay, it's getting closer to what we want. Okay, so now with taking none off of their float, they will now sit underneath each other vertically rather than horizontally. Let's change their height because they seem a little tall. Let's go with a height of maybe 10 pixels. Let's go with maybe some padding of, I don't know, 10 pixels as well. Let's see what that looks like. First of all, save that. Okay, they're getting kind of squished up. We'll fix that, don't worry. Okay, that looks good. We'll set a margin on the top to 0 pixels. We already have a background color, but I think what I want to do here is maybe I will get rid of the background color. Yeah, I will, because there's already a 0.7 background color coming from the unordered list above. So background color, let's just set it to RGBA, and let's just go 0, 0, 0, 0. Yeah, with an alpha of 0. So that's 4 zeros. Save it. Now the background disappears. I hope I'm not going too fast here and confusing you guys. But what we're doing is we're styling the actual buttons themselves. Okay. You'll notice that when we hover over, we got this rounded effect that's still carried over from the desktop version. So if you remember what that was, we had a border top left radius. I think it was set to 10. We're going to set it back to 0. And we had a border top right radius. we're going to set that to 0. Save it. Now we'll have the rounded blocks off. Good. Getting closer. And remember, this is still going to work. It's going to show and hide by clicking that. Okay. The other adjustments, let's just put this in align content. I always do this to center. I always do that. It doesn't usually make much of a difference, but I put that in there. What we need to do on this unordered list here, I think, is we need to actually push everything down. So what we'll do is we will make a margin on the top. And let's make it 50 pixels, which is the same distance. That should push everything down the same height as the top bar. So if I save that, yes, it pushes everything down below the header, below the nav, sorry. Okay, it's coming along. Let's add some padding, because if you look, these buttons are going right to the bottom. I don't like the way that looks. So let's put some padding at the bottom. Let's go to maybe just add some, like 10 pixels. It doesn't need much. Yeah, that'll add a little bit of space there. It looks a little bit better. Maybe not so much. Maybe 5. It doesn't need 10. Okay. Yeah, I think that looks better. I didn't see much of a difference, but okay. So that is looking great. You can see that it's working properly. One thing I don't like is this shadow. You see the shadow on the nav bar at the top? Well, that should be relatively easy to remove. We can simply go here to mobile nav and set what I think was the box shadow, is what we had set before. We'll set it to none. Yeah, that'll get rid of that shadow. Yeah, the only thing that sucks is when it's not clicked, you would rather have the shadow, but when it's clicked, you'd rather not have it. So I guess that's a little weird. Yeah, maybe I'll get rid of that. As you can see, guys, really there's no rules to this. You can mess around with it until you're happy with the way that it looks. Another thing you'll notice, I don't like the padding on the right side. It seems kind of big, so I think I'll set my padding on the right to maybe I'll just go 0. Maybe I'll have it go right across the page. And same with the padding on the left. It should take it right to 0 if I do that. Yeah, it goes much closer to the edge. Okay, so as you can see, guys, again, I could spend a lot of time making this perfect, but I don't want to take any more of the time I've already spent on this. As you can tell, this is a working nav bar. When I switch over to my full size, it disappears. This site will work great, whether it's on a phone or on an iPad or on a desktop. It's basically now set up for anything. You could spend a lot more time in your mobile section making things look pretty, specifically for smaller screens. You know, one thing that we could, now that we've seen that this works, we could take out the green background, because that was actually just to, just to test. You can take body background color green out, save it, and now it's more or less kind of finished for what it is. All right, but as you can see, guys, this is the final site, and I know it's basic, but we covered a lot. And from the stuff that we have covered in this site, you can pretty much make any site you want from this. By going to the contact page, I just reminded myself of something. Again, you will notice on this page, it will work responsively. But if you remember, when we went to contact, we made a separate HTML file. That one will not have the responsive setting added. So what we need to do, I might as well do it right now since we're working on it anyways, is all we have to do is from our index page, we could copy this nav section, this whole entire nav section, all the way to just before where it says hero fade in. We could copy this whole section. We can go into our contact and we can just replace that nav section, which is much smaller because it's the old one. Paste it in there. And because it's using the same style sheet, as soon as we save it, now that one's going to work as well. Okay, so it's pretty easy to add to your other pages. You just copy the nav section over. But as you can tell, guys, that's how you would make a responsive site. And like I said, there's so many uses for that. I mean, nowadays, more people use their phones for surfing the internet than people on desktops. So it's very important to have both versions available to those who are using it. All right. That's about it for me. Thanks for watching. Again, I hope you guys learned a few things from this video series. I might have a few more advanced things that I might add for those who want to go beyond this. But again, from this, you should be able to make a relatively well-built site, and hopefully you'll be able to improve on this. Till next time, thanks for watching.